Witches and wizards, let me take you back in time to October of 2020. You see, that is when I first started making videos about a little game called Hogwarts Legacy. And in only the second video I posted about it, I went through a list of 10 features that we needed to see in the final game. We didn't know it in October of 2020, but after a series of delays, we wouldn't see the game for roughly 2.5 years from when I made that video. Looking back at the list now, I'd say Avalanche did pretty well. They absolutely nailed Hogwarts Castle, made a combat system that was ridiculously fun, and let us interact with the wizarding world like never before. Oh, and it also helps that the game has already made over $1 billion, and that's even before releasing on the Nintendo Switch. So a sequel is all but inevitable, and because of the excellent foundation they've already built with Hogwarts Legacy, hopefully we won't be waiting as long for Hogwarts Legacy 2. By taking that foundation and iterating on it in a few key ways, they can create a game that is true to the original, true to the world they've built, but also one that ultimately ends up being a vastly superior game when compared to the first. For me, it all starts with having a feature that was one of the weakest areas of Hogwarts Legacy: the lack of a true morality system. We need to see this in Hogwarts Legacy 2. After all,
it is not our abilities that show what we truly are. It is our choices.
While we did have a handful of choices throughout the game, few of them seemed to have any major impact on the story. In fact, even the final choice ends up being a slight cutscene change and doesn't seem to matter much to the world around you after you make that choice. I can only really think of one choice that felt like it had a true meaning, a true consequence. All of the focus on whether or not you want to learn the unforgivable curses barely mattered at all. No one in the world seems to care about a fifth-year student roaming free and casting the unforgivable curses on anything and everything in their path. And on the other side of that, even if you chose a path of light, there were no rewards, no benefits for doing so, not in the gameplay, nor in the story. Now I think back to 2003, and there was a game then that absolutely nailed this. It's a little gem called Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. The morality system there tracks your choices throughout the game, which include everyday conversations and then critical plot decisions as well. This all determines whether you lean towards the path of light or the path of darkness. It's a simple scale from 0 to 100, with all players starting the game at 50. Morally good choices push your number up and closer to the light, where bad choices give you negative points. And there's even room for the morally gray players who want to follow their own code and ignore the traditional beliefs of the Jedi and Sith. As you move further in one of those directions, though, the appearance of your character will actually change. Certain abilities are also enhanced based on the path you choose, and you actually feel like you're having an impact on the world around you and the characters inside it. Most importantly, it's having an impact on you as a character. A true morality system with meaningful choices would add layers of complexity to a Hogwarts Legacy sequel, a layer of complexity that the original was sorely lacking. We would actually need to be mindful of our choices and actions, knowing that those decisions could lead to lasting consequences. They could change the course of the story and even influence the fate of our fellow witches and wizards. Now you may ask, what's the point of having all these narrative choices and key story decisions if our character doesn't actually have a reason for doing so? In Hogwarts Legacy 2, I would like to see a stronger storyline where our character has some sort of past. And again here, I look to Knights of the Old Republic as a shining example of how you give a character a strong story, but also give the player the freedom to shape and mold the character based on their preferred choices and style of play. I know it's an old game, but I still, all these years later, do not want to spoil it if you haven't played it yet. I want to be very careful how much I say here. I'll put it like this: your character starts the game as somewhat of a blank slate, and you're given the ability to make choices and guide their path. But as the story progresses, you're going to learn more about their past, which leads to one of the best conclusions in all of video games. Hogwarts Legacy wanted to let players be the witch or wizard they wanted to be, which is ultimately why I believe they went with a near total blank slate when it comes to our characters' past. We don't even know why they have this ancient magic ability or how they got it. We don't even know if we have parents. But I do think there's room for more background overall that would allow the developers to craft a more engaging and immersive narrative. A more defined backstory would enable the player to witness the protagonist's evolution, an evolution that would be based on our choices and decisions in the game. While the Harry Potter series may be named for the boy who lived, the iconic cast of characters around him also played a key role in his journey, and I think it should be that way in the sequel to Hogwarts Legacy as well. And one of the best ways to do this would be to have a true companion system where we can choose between different characters to accompany us on side quests and join up with specific characters related to the story for various main missions. Games like Skyrim, Mass Effect, and yes, Knights of the Old Republic have done an excellent job with this. It would actually appear this is something the original Hogwarts Legacy wanted to implement, at least at one time. After all, there are quests and missions where we team up with Poppy, Natsai, Sebastian, and yes, even Amit Takar. But the game stopped short of a true companion system where these characters join you on other missions. In fact, through a few PC companion mods, fans have found lines of dialogue that strongly suggest a fully fleshed out companion system was there, at least at some point in Hogwarts Legacy's development. Now, I don't believe it should be required for players to have a companion on every single quest. After all, there are some of us who enjoy tackling missions as a lone wolf, but there's no denying that a companion system would help to build the immersion of the world and make them start to feel like our own versions of Ron, Hermione, and Neville. And if they combine this with the choice and morality features we discussed before, these companions could grow alongside our main character and possibly even gain new abilities or open up unique storylines. Another key component to help build those relationships is giving players more time to actually live life as a student. That is, if they keep as a student in the sequel. Look, as much as I loved getting to freely roam the Scottish Highlands at any time, and I hope that free roaming is still very much an aspect in the sequel, I definitely think we need more time of the student life. I've recently been playing a lot of Harry Potter Magic Awakened, which has turned out to be a much better game than I ever expected. And that's coming from someone who doesn't really play mobile games, and to this point, I've spent absolutely nothing to play it. It's different from Hogwarts Legacy in so many ways. Truth be told, I think some sort of mashup between Legacy and Magic Awakened could actually give us the perfect Wizarding World game. One of the things Magic Awakened does so well is that it really helps you to feel like a student. Classes are a key part of the experience and always available for the player. You can choose to take them with some of the NPC classmates from the game, or you can actually invite your real-world friends. Rather than having the classes at a set time of day, they're open to the player at any time, but they actually do rotate which classes are available from day to day. Legacy had some good ideas for the classes, but most of them ended up being a one-time experience, and even some of the enjoyable extracurricular activities, such as Summoner's Court, they weren't even repeatable after completing the mission that corresponded with them. The Cross Wands Dueling Club just completely gone after you complete that. Magic Awakened also has some live events that players can experience in real time with fellow students, such as a fireworks celebration flying around Hogwarts Castle. You know, playing with others from our community here has been one of the most enjoyable parts of that new mobile title, and I would love to see Hogwarts Legacy 2 add some sort of cooperative multiplayer mode that can be experienced with other players from around the world. Now, don't get me wrong, I believe the core focus of Hogwarts Legacy sequel should remain on delivering a high-quality, single-player action RPG, but there's definitely something to be said for a mode that allows some of the most passionate, longtime fans of this series to group up and actually participate in activities together. For me, my memories of this series will always be about community. Some of the first podcasts that I ever listened to were Harry Potter podcasts. Probably the only time in my life that I will ever have the experience of going to a midnight book launch happened because of Harry Potter. And so much of this was about experiencing it with other people, the community. Now, I think Ghost of Tsushima on the PS4 gives a fantastic blueprint for how developers can create a top-notch single-player experience, but then surprise everyone with a standalone multiplayer mode for those who want to team up with friends. It also helps to extend the lifespan of the game and keep the conversation around Hogwarts Legacy going. And WB leadership has already spoken about how they see Hogwarts Legacy as a new franchise. So it's safe to say this is a series they're looking to keep going for years to come. There was even a rumor of a Hogwarts Legacy TV show at one point. If they're going to grow this franchise to even bigger heights, they'll need to venture beyond the walls of just Hogwarts and even beyond the boundaries of the Scottish Highlands. That's right, Hogwarts Legacy 2 needs to add more iconic Wizarding World locations for the player to explore. So early in the first game, we made our way through Gringotts, which I thought was a fantastic start to the game. It really helped to set the stage for an epic journey across the Wizarding World. Unfortunately, outside of the Scottish Highlands area, we don't really do a lot of traveling in the main game. There are a few memory sequences here and there. Oh, and if you played as a Hufflepuff, you do get to see Azkaban, but it's very brief. A sequel needs to see entire storylines and missions that take place in some of the most famous locations from the Wizarding World, such as Azkaban, the Ministry of Magic, Diagon Alley, and possibly even other Wizarding World schools from around the world. As much as we all love Hogwarts itself and know that it needs to be central to the experience, some of the most epic scenes from the book actually take place in some of those other iconic locations. Traveling to more of these locations would really help to set the stage for an even bigger story, as that ancient magic that we learn about in the first game, maybe it actually starts having ripple effects throughout the rest of the world. Now, if we're going to be venturing into more locations, such as Azkaban, then we'll need to add more spells to our arsenal. Combat was ridiculously fun in the first game, and it would be awesome to see them build on that core mechanic by adding more spells such as Aguamenti, Incarcerous, and Obliviate. The one that would be at the top of my list, though, you guys already know. It's without a doubt the Patronus charm. We need to see our Patronus in Hogwarts Legacy 2. Avalanche made an incredibly smart move with the first game by allowing players to link up their Wizarding World account to the game, which in turn gave us the option to bring over our house and wand from the website. Imagine if they took this a step further in the sequel by bringing over our Patronus charm. This would be more difficult to pull off as there are numerous Patronus options. Fortunately, they all serve the same purpose, but would need slightly different animations to represent the animal. Now that I think about it, Hogwarts Legacy should already have many of these animations thanks to the vast number of creatures already included in the original. You've got Graphorns, Mooncalves, Nifflers, Kneazles, and even dragons. Oh, and speaking of dragons, can we please ride them in the sequel? I'll be honest, I really thought they were setting up for an epic conclusion that had dragon mounts as maybe an in-game unlock, but alas, it was not meant to be. While we could ride brooms, thestrals, hippogriffs, and grabhorns, and even though dragons make quite a few appearances in the game, we never unlocked them as a mount. At first, it may not seem like it fits within the world, but even Harry and the trio rode on a dragon in the final book of the series. And while we're on the topic of rideable mounts, what about being able to cast spells while we're riding in the next game? For number 9 on our list, we have to talk about the need for better loot in Hogwarts Legacy 2. The first game had so many caves and hamlets to explore. A lot of these caves really had fun puzzles too. But some of these areas aren't even getting seen by players because they're just not worth it to explore. Sure, there's treasure and loot there, but rarely is it actually rewarding. Players would frequently find themselves opening loot that was actually lower in level than what they already had. Now, these extra items, they don't really even serve much of a purpose. Sure, you could sell them in Hogsmeade and then even use the enchanted loom that's in the Room of Requirement to enhance certain abilities, but personally, I found the game didn't really present many scenarios where these upgrades were even needed. I expected to have areas of the game where I would really need to optimize and focus on certain pieces of gear that are going to best help me in that situation. So it'd be great if the sequel had more enemy variety where there was actually more strategy to some of this. And while I appreciate the numerous cosmetic options that were in the game, they really missed having a few standout items that you could only get in certain locations. Games like Dark Souls have mastered this, but they also have the benefit of letting the player wield a variety of weapons such as axes, swords, bows, whereas in the wizarding world, you're sorta kinda limited to just a wand. This is where Avalanche would really need to think outside the box, figure out ways to make the loot more rewarding overall. To be fair, the wizarding world does have a few iconic items they could use, at least for inspiration. You have the Sword of Gryffindor, the Resurrection Stone, the Cloak of Invisibility, the Philosopher's Stone, and the Mirror of Erised, and of course, the Elder Wand. That being said, even cosmetics can be rewarding if handled properly. After all, they did have the Daedalian Keys questline, which was the path for unlocking the Relic House uniforms. Some of the best uniforms in the game. Maybe there's a special Gryffindor robe that improves the power of certain spells, or a Slytherin robe that makes you more stealth. You know, I'm still surprised that the first game did not lean more into the lore of the Founders, as it is largely unexplored territory. And for 4 of the most powerful witches and wizards in the whole series, it's almost certain that they each had numerous enchanted artifacts that they left behind. Now, in that video I made back all the way in October of 2020, there are a few requests we had then that did not make it into the final game, such as the ability for our character to become an animagus, multiplayer, and a dedicated house cup where you earn points. But by far the most glaring omission that did not make it into Hogwarts Legacy is without a doubt Quidditch, the iconic sport of the wizarding world. So even though I don't personally think that we absolutely need a version of Quidditch in Hogwarts Legacy 2, I'm gonna put it on the list because I do read your comments and this is one that comes up time and time again. So I'll say it for you guys, it would be nice if Hogwarts Legacy 2 had at least some form of Quidditch for the player to participate in. Did you guys know though that they're actually working on a completely standalone Quidditch game already? Yeah, it's called Harry Potter Quidditch Champions, and you can learn all about it in the video on the right side of your screen now. In fact, some people have even gotten to playtest the game, but they can't talk about it. As always, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.